following is a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
Welcome to the System is Down.
What's up, Downers? Welcome back to the least comfortable show on the web, The System is Down, where we talk about all the uncomfortable topics that your family hates you bringing up, like conspiracies, politics, and religion. And this is going to be another update on the hashtag Operation Backyard Brawl case that we've talked about in the last two episodes. We've kind of fallen off more than I intended to. It's been a busy weekend, and there hasn't been a ton of new news, but there's been some unravelings that we felt like we should address. Just to make sure that you guys have all the information that we can give you. Got Craig here, and we're doing this semi-live, straight through again, no editing. So if you are a mother or a father or something in between that has a child in the room, this is not going to be a child-appropriate episode, so go ahead and send them on to bed or put the earmuffs on. Before we get into this, I got to remind you guys to go over to Patreon, sign up for the System is Down's Downers Club. That is what keeps this stuff going, and more importantly, it's what gets you a whole bunch of bonus audio and video content. We're ramping things up with the production. We've got some live streams in the works that we're planning on doing. Once we get all the bugs figured out, we're gonna do some fun stuff. So if you want all that, go over to patreon.com/The System is Down. Here again with Craig to talk about hashtag Operation Backyard Brawl. Craig, how's it going?
Hello.
Hello.
Fantastic.
Are you happy that you're the guy that I call upon when I need to know details on pedophilia cases and the like?
I don't really know how I got that job, but yeah, that's fantastic. Probably because I'm the one that always sends it to you and say, hey, watch this. You got to watch this now.
Yep. You are my pedophilia guy.
That I don't want to be considered that. Please don't ever.
Everybody can contact Craig for all things pedophilia related.
Stop it now.
All right. So, there's been some things that have come out. We said in the last episode that some people are seemingly trying to discredit these people, the veterans on patrol. I've been so out of it. I've been so busy. I haven't even had that much of a chance to look into any of the videos and stuff. I've listened to a couple podcast episodes that have given kind of an unbiased take on what's going on and given updates, which is great. But I don't know much on the details. And yeah, I didn't want to just like fall off the map just because some people are saying, hey, it's not credible. If we're wrong, great. If there's anything here at all, we need to be looking into it still and not just let the Snopes review throw us into a not caring attitude about the whole thing. So Craig, do you have some news for me?
Yeah. I'm kind of sitting on the fence now more than I was earlier this week of how I feel about everything that's going on. Some stuff's come out about the main guy that you see in these videos. His name he goes by Louis Arthur, or his real name I think is Michael Meyer, or he goes by Michael Louis Arthur Meyer, or he goes by Louis Prepper apparently on some of his Facebook, right, stuff like that. Apparently there is quite a bit of he's been really active in the last 10 years because just about any altercation between the public and the government that comes up, somehow this guy happens to be there on site.
Right.
I don't know if you're too familiar with the Bundy Ranch standoff or the...
I'm vaguely... And I will say, for the sake of the listeners who don't know, even though it's more so for the sake of me, give a brief rundown of what went down there. I know some of the general information, but not a lot of the specifics.
The Bundy Ranch standoff was, it was basically these ranchers down in Nevada. I want to say they had their their cattle grazing on public land and stuff like that And this had been going on for years and years and years. This is just kind of how they did things. And the government decided, hey, you're not going to graze on public land, on federal land. So they just kept having this going back and forth between them and the Bundys, the federal government and the Bundys. And then all of a sudden, at some point, the federal government decided to go into the federal land and just round up any cattle that was on federal property and just kind of hold it, like took it for their own. And so that led to this standoff. I'm going to pull up the actual Wikipedia article. It's an armed confrontation.
Share the screen.
Okay.
We're doing this again. We're going to try and do this more and more and make these videos better production and everything. So, and we've got better things in the works, but we haven't ironed out the kinks on them. So if you're watching on YouTube, he's pulling up the screen now where you can see the article he's reading.
This is Wikipedia, article from Wikipedia. So, I mean, it's not going to be the most credible, but it's got the most information on it.
It's the easiest go-to.
This was back in 2014. It says an armed confrontation between the supporters of cattle rancher Cliven Bundy, that's quite the name, Cliven, and law enforcement following a 21-year legal dispute in which the U.S. Bureau of Land Management, BLM, obtained court orders directing Bundy pay over $1 million with withheld grazing fees for Bundy's use of federally owned.
This is a different BLM. This is Bureau of Land Management, not Black Lives Matter.
Exactly. This was way before Black Lives Matter. This was like 2 years before or a year before maybe. So what happened was, this says, starting in 93, in protest against changing grazing rules, the Bundys declined to renew a permit for grazing on public land. Federal government, according to Bundy, federal government lacks the constitutional authority to own vast tracts of land, which I don't know where he gets that out of the Constitution, but that was his claim. And the court said, you're wrong, that's not true. And that even went all the way to the Supreme Court, I think. And he basically continued to let his cattle graze on the land. It says the land is called the Bunkerville Allotment. In 2013, federal judge Lloyd George ordered Bundy to refrain from trespassing on federally administered land. 2014, land was closed. The federal land was closed for the capture and impoundment and removal of trespassing cattle. Officials and law enforcement rangers began roundup of such livestock on April 5th. I'm trying to just kind of breeze through this. There was a standoff. It doesn't really say much about it on that one.
Yeah, I was going to say jump ahead to the good part.
Right. So that was the background of it. So the government went in and started rounding up his crops. Here's the confrontation. In late March, Bundy sent letters entitled Range War Emergency Notice and Demand for Protection to county, state, and federal officials. In media interviews, Bundy used the language of the sovereign citizen movement as a rallying call, beckoning support from members of the Oath Keepers, the White Mountain Militia, and Praetorian Guard. So a bunch of militiamen started coming in and like having these protests and stuff like that. And one of the groups that went in was Veterans on Patrol, or at least our man here, Lewis Arthur.
Michael Arthur
Myers. Arthur Myers, or Louis Parker.
Oh, it's close. There's 4 names. If you get them in any varying order, you're doing better than most.
It says March 27th meeting. Cliven Bundy's son, Ryan Bundy, spoke on state sovereignty and land ownership matters. Large tracts of land, the BLM, Forest Service, monuments, parks, and national parks, etc. There's no constitutionality of giant piece of federal land, is what he's saying. Confrontation, April 10th, protesters blocked a BLM truck and demanded to know why a backhoe and dump truck were being used in the operation. Yeah, that's a good question. The BLM director in Nevada later said the equipment was being used for field restoration. According to a statement, The BLM, the black truck, was struck by a protester on an ATV. Officers protecting the truck driver had tasers and police dogs. Protesters angrily confronted the Rangers. According to CNN, federal officials say a police dog was kicked and officers were assaulted. So big confrontation. And then I think it came down to there was the confrontation, and then they suspended the roundup. And to this day, I'm pretty sure the Bundys are still grazing on that property and not paying any dues, is what that came down to. But in the whole thing, our man, Lewis Arthur, was there. And here's a video I'll go ahead and play while we're here of him. Mm-hmm. I think this was at the Bundy. Yes, this was at the Bundy Ranch. So he looks a little bit younger here, which is surprising because this was only like 4 years ago, but he looked almost like he's like 20 years younger in this picture. If
he's not wearing a hat, he doesn't have the facial hair.
Maybe that's it. But his rhetoric, the things he's saying, it's got to be him because his rhetoric is exactly the same. Here, I'll go and play this.
Here we have Lewis Arthur, the guy that's at the front gate. The verbiage, and he's telling people not. And he is doing. Now he's clean. You guys tell me.
I thought I had this.
And when he and talk to the instances.
Fail.
Here we go.
Law enforcement on the outside. He says explicitly, if someone gets shot.
What the heck? Okay, this is not. All right, keep watching.
Well,
YouTubers.
Here we go. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry about that. That video is not working.
It's terrible for audio. For those listening, this YouTuber decided to play about 2 sentences each time and then cut in with comments about him being a shill.
I thought I had the right video pulled up. Are you still looking at my screen?
No.
Okay, just making sure. Anyway, this is just a video of him basically saying same kind of lingo that he was saying in some of these other videos, like we don't want a confrontation, we don't want a standoff, we're just bringing in our people to make sure things are like blah blah blah, just kind of the same lingo. You can tell it's him, just
all the right words
and stuff. Yeah. So people were saying back in 2014, I think, that this guy was just sent in to kind of screw things up, or the other incident that he was at was the Oregon standoff, which also involved Bundys. The Oregon standoff I know a little more about. Basically, there was some local ranchers in Oregon who, it was kind of a similar situation where when they bought this property in the 60s, they were given grazing rights to this federal land around their farm. And so over the years, they would let their animals go and graze. And this area, the farmers around, the ranchers around, formed this irrigation system for their ranches and stuff like that. And it actually increased like the birds and the ecosystem in that area. It just turned into this beautiful ecosystem because of their irrigation system. Well, once it turned into this beautiful ecosystem, the federal BLM wanted it back pretty much, and they didn't want them grazing on it, and they wanted to turn it into like a park or something like that. And they kept going back and forth. There was several times they would arrest this local farmer or try to charge him with stuff. The big incident was at one point they had started a fire to clear out some brush and stuff. Control fire got out of control, and it kind of burned onto their property, onto federal property. Well, this was in the 90s. And then later in the 2000s, there was like a confrontation between them again. And so the farmers, during a storm, lightning struck and lit something on fire, and the farmers were going to lose their house. So they started another control burn to keep it from like burning their farm and their house. And that got a little off their property. Well, at this point, the federals came in and charged them, and also back charged them for the fire started like 20 years prior or 15 years prior. And so they arrested them and they charged them with like terrorism for like some act terrorist act for destruction of federal property and stuff like that. And it was just a big mess. So in this process, a bunch of militiamen and stuff like that went up to Oregon, including the Bundys and including VOP guys. And well, first it was the Bundys and these local people, and they took over this federal, just this federal building. It was just like a national park building or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so they were just kind of holding that, and nothing was really happening. Well, then the VOP guys came up, and then they set up a tent, a big military-style tent across the road. And this Lewis Arthur decided, I'm going to go over there and talk some sense into these guys, because he swore that one of the guys that was in there, who was also from Arizona, one of the militiamen, was like suicidal and was trying to do like a suicide by cop, like become a martyr and stuff like that. And he's like, well, I'm going to go talk some sense to that guy. And so as soon as he got onto the property, apparently there was an altercation, what turned from a peaceful protest into a bunch of fighting between the militiamen as soon as Lewis Arthur stepped on. And both sides are saying the other side started the fight. And so I do have an article pulled up about that. Hang on just a second, and I will share this one with you. This one, I think, was back in 2014, so this must have been the Bunny Ranch one. It says, can you see me?
Yeah.
All right. It says Bundy Ranch infiltrator. Yeah, this was May 11, 2014. Screwy Louie exposed. I like that name more than all the other names we mentioned. There's Louie Prepper, which is another name that goes by. Apparently he's a big-time prepper, and his Facebook page is actually Louie Prepper. I've found his personal page on Facebook. It says Louie Prepper exposed, at very least, a nutcase, and what I happen to think is probable, a co-Intel Pro mole. So this person thinks he was like an infiltrator, like a federal infiltrator. It says this one individual has single-handedly done more damage and has caused more division, and by bringing the police in to search everyone, has also created hesitation on anyone else to come. He speaks about we as if he had some significant contingency of assistance. He openly admitted to recording people without their knowing and in a direct opposition to any consent, and thinks it is the same as not mentioning it. He is being investigated by his local police, and they told us when we called that the FBI is now involved for a local violation in Nevada. Why would they be involved? Because he is a snitching mole. In mine and other people's opinion, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of people are saying this guy is an infiltrator that's coming to like mess up what would otherwise be like peaceful protests or things that are actually a good thing, or like forward progress with the public and stuff like that. And so this is why articles like this from years ago started making me kind of lose faith in what's going on now.
Sure.
But then also people are like just yelling a whole bunch of stuff about this guy that I don't even know if can be validated. Like, apparently
he's a recovering drug addict.
He's a
blah blah blah.
A drug addict. He's a sex.
Totally unrelated things.
Yeah, a sex offender. They say he like was arrested for like having sex with like a teenager or something like that. Which people have looked and tried to find him in all the states on the state sex offender registries, and they're not able to conclude that that's true. So whoever's there's a lot out against him, which all that's out against him. My conspiratorial brain says there's a lot of people against him, which means he might be onto something. But then on the other side, maybe he is making all this noise to prevent us from seeing what's really going on.
It's a really shady back and forth, like getting jerked around, which is really frustrating because just the disinfo people on either side, clearly we've got them on both sides of this. Or at the very least one side of this, like somebody has to be lying about something. Like one guy is saying he discovered this thing, but some things don't add up with what the other side is saying. And they're saying that he's like a drug addict and sex offender and is just in there to do these things. If he was like COINTELPRO, you would think that there would be less, I don't know, I guess I'm not like concluding anything, but I'm starting to be a little bit against this guy, which is unfortunate because it's not news that there's these things happening in the world. So it's kind of like Alex Jones. I always say, like, he's putting something out there that's like, hey, we found this thing, and then he's allegedly presenting himself as a nut job, which causes everyone to think, oh, well, we thought this was our first introduction to the idea of child sex slavery and camps and stuff like that. And now that he's put it out there and then been discredited, the whole idea of that going on is discredited, which I'm kind of leaning towards. Right. It is strange that so many people are dogging on him in not really credible ways. So I'm not really sure where to go with it. Hey, Dan Smots here. I'm taking a second to interrupt myself talking to talk about myself because, you know, I don't get paid a penny for the hours and hours that I put into creating this show for you guys in your greedy little ears, and I've got a family to feed. To make that happen, I run my own media business called Goulash Media. If you have a need in anything from video production to graphic design to audio production and beyond, you can get it all for a painfully fair price at Goulash Media. In video, I do weddings, music videos, commercials, pageants, plays, etc., etc., etc. For design, I do photo editing, album art, logos, branding, business cards, merchandise, you name it. For audio, I do engineering, production, editing, jingles, and, well, podcasts. So if you've got a media need of any kind, or if you'd just like to give a little something back and help keep my children fed, check out all the endless options at my website, goulashmedia.net. That's goulash, Goulash, media.net, where we cater to the little guy with the big vision. Okay. Let's get into this Craig Sawyer guy. Yeah,
I had a video about him.
Who is this guy? He kind of came out of nowhere, too.
This guy is the head of, he's actually a former veteran. That's another thing everyone started screaming at first. They're like, this guy's the Louis Arthur. I want to say Louis Armstrong, but that's not it.
Screwy Louis.
Screwy Louis.
Actually, no, don't. Because I don't want to discredit him just yet. Right. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for now. So call him by his 5 names.
Louis Armstrong. Louis Arthur. Oh my God. Louis Arthur. They're like, oh, he's not even a veteran, this and that. And like, I've seen videos where he's coming on, like countering some of the stuff. He's like, dude, I never said I was a veteran. I never said this. And
I haven't heard him say it either.
Yeah, I haven't either. He's like, I never claimed that he's like, I do have a past. He's like, I have been arrested a bunch of times, but he's like, I never claimed otherwise. Right. He's like, now I've cleaned myself up. He's like, are you going to hold some of this stuff being arrested in my past? You're going to hold that against me now?
Yeah, I don't care about that. That's just piling on. Like, who cares about his character? Let's look at the things that he's actually done that are related to this, which are the only things that I think are shady.
So I'm going to play. This is Craig Sawyer is actual, I think they said a Navy SEAL veteran, and he runs a similar group called Veterans for Child Trafficking, V4CR. So he was called in by Louis Arthur at the beginning, and he claims now is under false pretenses that Louis Arthur told him on the phone. He's like, look, we have children here that need protection and blah, blah, blah. We need some backup and all this stuff. And so this Craig Sawyer is coming on now. He went there originally. He said, yeah, things are a little shady and stuff. And then that's kind of where he left it. Well, this is his final report is what it says on what he thinks about this. And hang on just a second. I'll pull you up.
Whip it out.
I will whip it. All right. So,
hi, folks. Craig Sawyer here. I want to share with you my final response on the alleged child sex trafficking site in Tucson, Arizona. We've concluded our examination of the site. I want to share the facts with you. Due to the initial circumstantial evidence and a number of inaccurate claims, we have believed that an investigation of this site was warranted. A police investigation has been conducted and concluded. I was notified of children in an underground bunker at the site the evening of Tuesday, May 29th, 2018, and responded to take a look. When I arrived there were 3 Tucson police officers and no children. Once Tucson Police Department left, I took a look around the site, documented it with my mobile phone. Based on what we saw, we had concerns. Since then, I've spoken to the media, and as a former federal criminal investigator and founder of Veterans for Child Rescue, I shared my opinion that the circumstantial evidence suggested the site may have been used for something more than just a homeless camp. Unfortunately, large portions of this story were then blown out of proportion, and this started with a false claim of children inside the bunker at a sex camp in South Tucson that turned out to be false. The story that no investigation was conducted is false. I've personally met with Tucson Police Department and reviewed all 9 of the official police reports, and I have copies right here, read through all of them. Tucson Police Department made at least 8 trips out to the site. There were over 20 officers and command staff involved in the investigation. The claim that TPD was not there and did not conduct an investigation is false. The claim that there were children on the site is false. The claim that condoms were found on the site is false. The claim that there was a bloody knife found on the site is false. The claim that there was a shallow grave found on the site is false. The claim that a bone sticking out of the ground was found on the site is false. The claim that a human body was found on the site is false. The skeletal remains were found 20 miles away.
I don't think he ever said that this was on the site.
South Tucson.
Right.
I think he was exploring the area around. He never said area. This was
on Tuesday, May 29th, 2018. They responded 5 minutes later at 9:03 p.m. They conducted a 1-hour, 58-minute investigation on the site of the physical evidence. The circumstantial evidence at the site suggested something more than just a homeless camp. We looked around, we had concerns about it, but in the end, there was no physical evidence of a crime. This was not good enough for the public, and other organizations urged further investigation. The narrative was that no investigation was being conducted. That was false. The police were called out as more and more alleged evidence was being found, but it has all turned out to be false. Listen, folks, child trafficking is a real problem, and it's a big problem. Just because this site was sensationalized doesn't mean the problem doesn't exist. Blowing things out of proportion and exaggerating doesn't help legitimate organizations nor law enforcement combat the problem or save our children. Our organization had nothing to do with the sensationalism surrounding this site, and we are not associated with Veterans on Patrol in any way. They are a completely different type of entity with an entirely different mission. We, Veterans for Child Rescue, are a national organization with representatives in over 136 cities now. We train and support law enforcement all across the United States. We train teachers, counselors in schools, and medical professionals about healthy relationships, cybersecurity, and sexual predators. And we help parents protect their children on mobile and social apps.
Losing you. You there?
I think the point. Yep, I'm here. Sorry.
I think that's about enough anyway. Yeah, I find it interesting. And I would like to get one of these guys on the show, maybe even both of these guys on the show, somebody on the show, because I don't know what's going on. And I will freely admit I don't know what's going on. There are conspiracy people on both sides that are... One side is saying that this Craig Sawyer guy is a shill trying to cover up something that's huge and blown up and going on. And, Craig Sawyer saying that this guy is... I don't know, like, you got people on both sides saying each one is a shill, and I think that, I hate to say it, but I'm starting to agree with Alex Jones that the whole thing is a bit of a diversion from something. Something is going on. I found some of the things that Louis was posting to be a little bit strange, like him moving the evidence from the initial site, him like you see the child's skull, and he apparently kicked it over because it's in two different places in two different pictures. Strange things that if like that child's skull should have been like the most damning evidence of all, should have been super obvious, and you moved it. I don't like that Craig Sawyer is like, oh, he found a child's skull, but it wasn't on the site. It was 20 miles away. It's like, that's not that far away. And if there's a child's skull anywhere in the area,
that's not
raises a lot of concern for me.
And like I said, he never once claimed that I heard that, oh, we found this on that site, blah, blah, blah. No, they were very clear, because this was like several videos later, that they were patrolling public property. They made very specific, we're on public property now, which means they're not in that area. And that's when they found the skull and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. Lewis Arthur, whatever his name is. I checked the VOP site, and apparently his Facebook account has been removed completely. They posted a link to his YouTube where he's going to continue posting things. I mean, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to assume that he's a scumbag just because he's been in other places where people have said he's crazy. People say that we're crazy. People say that everybody who's doing conspiracy research is crazy. So I want to. He gets the benefit of the doubt for me, even though it seemed he's got some shady things that went on in his past. Maybe he's got a couple screws a little bit loose, and he's like, he probably, I don't know. I want to believe that he believes what he's saying, and that he's digging into things and uncovering things, and just keeps making himself look a little bit bad sometimes. But there's a lot to it on both sides, and I'm not sure where I land. And you guys be the judge. Did you have another video clip?
I do. I wanted to talk a little more about Craig Sawyer. We were saying that how he's maybe he's the diversion and stuff like that. Well, I got this video of him actually talking about pedogate and stuff like that back in last year, July of 2017. So,
Pizzagate.
It says pedogate, but yeah,
right.
He does specifically reference Pizzagate because there's a lot that goes with even mentioning that. But here's this video of him.
Scourge against our youth. It's really nothing new. What's new is that it's kind of being exposed at an accelerating rate, really. And it's a beautiful thing. I welcome that. And I intend to be a huge part of that. I want to throw as much, fuel on that flame as possible, because 27 million children worldwide are victims of human trafficking and sex slavery. So there's no small problem, and we've got an attack against the youth and the future of our nation. And it's a lot of the people that have a penchant for abusing and even torturing to death. A lot of these children are among the wealthy elites, some of the biggest names, companies and foundations out there are heavily involved in what would really be unthinkable activity and behavior without being walked through it. So look, with me having a spec ops background, a federal law enforcement background, and working in several other agencies and having high level contacts there, I decided, as I started learning more about this that's been going on, it really just started abrading me and upsetting me what was going on to the kids. I've been all over the globe. I've seen a lot of injustice and a lot of heartache and destruction. And I'm calloused in a lot of ways, but in another way, I'm very sensitive to anything that goes on with the kids. I like defending. I like the whole principle of defending the defenseless. That's kind of how I'm wired for whatever.
So I have a hard time saying this guy is out to distract, because he seems very involved in a lot of the same stuff.
Genuine. It's hard. Like, I want to give other dude the benefit of the doubt. I want to give this dude the benefit of the doubt too.
A lot of people are saying the big thing now is that Lewis Arthur is just out LARPing, which is live action role playing, just playing army out in the desert pretty much. And I have a hard time, like you said, just discrediting him because just based on his past, I mean, they've done a lot to discredit him as a person, but they have yet to still discredit the stuff that he's showing and all this other stuff. All they're saying is police reports say that's not true. That's inaccurate. Well, they also said that Pizzagate's been debunked, but how really have they debunked Pizzagate? And I wanted to pull up your YouTube video that you posted on it. There was a comment on it. It was basically that. It's just like, oh, this has been debunked as this guy just LARPing and all that. So I didn't pull it up, so I don't want to go looking for it now. But I'm just like, that sounds so much like Pizzagate rhetoric. Like, oh, it's been debunked. It's false. Right. Move on. And all that's really happening now is just a bunch of infighting. Like this group of people that wants the same thing, they want to bring down like sex offenders and sex trafficking and child trafficking and all that. But we're getting stuff like this where two different sides are arguing over it. And now the general public of us crazy conspiracy people are fighting over it, saying,
right, you're a shill. No, you're a shill. No, you're a shill. No, you're a shill.
That's it. Just everybody's a shill. And what I liked in the beginning, how everyone was coming together against this, it's kind of going the opposite direction now where everybody is just kind of splitting up on this. And to be honest, it's true. I mean, there is sex trafficking, there is child trafficking, and there's probably a lot of it down where they are right now in Arizona. Stuff that we can't disprove that hasn't been debunked is this elementary school that we showed with the clear pedophile symbolism in it.
There's a local mall that has it
just
on it
a lot of weird
that
stuff
was taken down.
Yeah, there was I think a casino that had it. I sent you like several different things that had basically that same symbol right there, and a couple of them were in Tucson. One was up in Phoenix, which is a little further north, but it's just weird the symbolism around, and stuff like that doesn't go away. And there's definitely like drug trafficking going through there. You can't tell me there's not human trafficking that's going on at the same time. So, like I said, I'm not going to just completely throw this out.
Unirock2 on YouTube says, hashtag Operation Backyard Brawl is a debunked LARP show, fake news explosion. KGS 2127 responded and said, you are suspect. This is what we're dealing with. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Can we just like look at it? I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong. I'm saying let's look at it. And the person who's getting the most flack is probably the one that you should probably be listening to. I'm not sure who that is yet, because conspiracy people drive me insane because they won't just look at things and try and figure it out. They'll just shout name calling.
Well, like we mentioned at the beginning, it went straight to, like, as soon as this started happening, it went straight to, oh, this is definitely a Hillary Clinton thing, and it's backed by the Clinton Foundation, all this. And it's just like, can we just stop and examine like the facts before we go straight into the all politics. This damning evidence pointing at the politics and stuff like that? And then it just kind of spiraled out of control. I have still been following the Facebook page. Apparently, they found these white painted X's like nearby these camps and stuff that are kind of marking this route out. I haven't got too deep into that. So even though I'm starting to possibly lose faith in this guy, I'm still very much following his videos and stuff like that, because for all I know, who knows? The guy could be onto something, and everybody else could be screaming at him to discredit him, because that's what happens. The person, like you said, the person getting the most flack, which seems to be this guy, might be the one that's on the target at this point. So who knows really what's going on, but something's going on. And I think if this guy's a shill or whatever you want to call him, or
which one,
or he just, this Lewis Arthur, if he's actually the one making all the noise, maybe he is just here to, like, somebody was close and on the right track, and then he just came out and just blew things out of proportion, so we can go back to our, oh, I guess that is crazy. You're right. It is those crazy people that are out playing around in the desert just to kind of take our minds off it and put us at ease that an idea like that must be crazy, because people like this screwy Louis are out running around in the desert with their guns, and they're right-wing conspiracy theorists, and they're Alex Jones fans and all, whatever they call anybody who gets an idea in their head, a free thought in their head, a right-wing conspiracy nut. So it could go either way. This guy could either be getting all the flack because he's on the right track, or he could be making all this noise to get us off track. But
yeah, and if we find out that we were completely wrong and Alex Jones was right, I will be sad. I will be depressed, but only not because I'm looking for conspiracy, because this isn't a conspiracy. This is something that we know is happening. Only because it would prove that there are people in the world like Louis Arthur who need the attention so much, or are shills, or whatever the reason, that are diverting all the attention. They're saying, hey, you know that thing that you know is happening? Here it is. Look at this. Look over here. Like, that would just be depressing to find out that there's somebody who is such a scumbag, such a dirtbag piece of garbage, that they would say, look at this. See, we did this. We found human remains. We found this and that and that. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I would be excited for this stuff to start coming out, because it's happening. It's happening whether we, see it on Facebook live stream or not. It's happening. I would be excited to see. I would not be excited that it's happening, because it is happening. I would be excited to see somebody exposing it hardcore and finally finding evidence and putting it out in the mainstream and stuff like that. And for somebody to give us the hope of the uncovering, the unveiling, the putting it out to the mainstream, and then be a shill and a worthless piece of garbage would be very devastating. At the same time, somebody like Craig Sawyer, if he is like trying to throw people off the trail, that would be very devastating too. I hope that Craig Sawyer is not right, because I hope that if Craig Sawyer is wrong, then it's probably, I wouldn't necessarily assume that he's a shill. Maybe he suspects that this guy is, up to some foul play. If Louis Arthur is wrong, then he's clearly making the whole thing up on his own just for some attention, and that is the lowest of the low. And
everyone points at, oh, he was part of the Bundy Ranch, he was part of the Oregon standoff and all this. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think there is a movement of citizens that are standing up against big federal government.
Yeah.
And there happens to be some of the same key players are in the process of it. Like the Bundys went up to Oregon to be part of this and support the ranchers up in Oregon. And so did the Veterans on Patrol and a couple other militia groups and stuff like that. It's just, that doesn't necessarily discredit him. That just means he's constantly doing things to oppose the big federal government. And this seems to be his next step, possibly. So I don't want people to think, oh, he's part of all these big.
It's not the same thing as seeing a victim of 9/11 and in the same spot as, victims of Sandy Hook or any of these other conspiracies that seem to keep popping up. This is like
how you get your YouTube channel taken down.
Yeah, that's fine. Screw it. This is like, I mean, it's easily explainable. This guy cares about defending like human rights and being against the state, and you can call him a right-wing nut job if you want, but he's he's showing up at all these things. They called him Screwy Louie. Could be because, they're calling him crazy now before we even knew that he was involved in that. They've called him crazy everywhere. They call everybody crazy who is opposed to the status quo. So hopefully that's the case here. I'm not saying it is, and my trust for this guy is, running a little bit low, but I'm going to keep an eye on it, and I would encourage everybody else to do the same. And I'll post a link to his YouTube. They still are uploading his YouTube videos to the the Facebook page. So you can find it all there at the same link, which seems strange that they would have deleted his Facebook personal page, but not the VOP one. I don't know.
Right. And that's what a lot of the infighting is. It's like, well, if he's really uncovering all this stuff, how are his videos still staying up when the Florida shooting thing happened and people started questioning that in the slightest bit, and videos were being taken down left and right. Facebook pages were being deleted, or Twitter accounts were being suspended and stuff like that because we were questioning David freaking Hogg. And then there's this guy here who is saying, hey, there's this big sex trafficking thing and there's a lot of weird stuff going on and the government's trying to cover it up or whatever. How is his page staying up and nobody's trying to take his stuff down?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know what to think anymore. But again, keep an eye on it. Check on him, his stuff. Check on Craig Sawyer if he posts anything new. Let us know. We'll probably put this on hold for a while because I don't want to keep just like running it into the ground if there's nothing new. If there's something big that comes out, we'll do an emergency broadcast of an update on it. Or if you want to, we'll probably be posting at the very least articles in our forum at tsidpod.com/forum. You can check them out there. You can join that for free. So yeah, get in there. We don't just talk about the down stuff, the downer, sad pedophilia stuff.
No, our group is called the Downer Club. We're not all about the down stuff.
We don't just talk about this stuff in there. We talk about all the weird stuff, the conspiracies, politics, and religion. Craig, do you have any final words on this before we put it on ice for just a bit?
I just wanted to throw a few facts out there that we may have missed because of all this noise. Fact, Disney World employees got arrested for child porn sting. It was a Disney World employee, a Disney park frequenter, and a Legoland builder that were busted for child pornography ring involving photos and videos of victims as young as 3 years old. This was going on during this whole Arizona thing, and we kind of overlooked it. Those three were among 11 men arrested and charged with at least 660 felony charges. So there's that. That is fact. That's not conspiracy. That actually happened. Fact, the same week, June 6th, in Atlanta, Georgia, a sting on a sex trafficking trade in Metro Atlanta. They rescued 160 children from that sex trafficking sting. And there was dozens of people arrested. Said 38 law enforcement agencies in 6 metro counties assisted. Special agent in charge, Matt Alcoke, said a sting on sex trafficking trade in Atlanta netted dozens of arrests and the rescue of 160 children forced into sexual servitude, the FBI announced this week. So that's fact. That actually happened. That's not people throwing out crazy information. And this was overlooked by us. I kind of mentioned the article, but nobody really talked about it because there's all this noise going on. So stuff is happening, regardless of whether or not Louis Arthur is a crazy person or a shill or whatever. Sex trafficking is happening. Child pornography, which is basically the same thing, is happening. We mentioned it in our Pizzagate episode. Over 400,000 people go missing. Children go missing a year. That's like the size of a small city. And so for us to look at somebody like Louis Arthur and be like, oh, that stuff's all crazy, I don't want to hear anything about it. It's happening. What was it? Several years ago, back in the 90s, I think, UN peacekeepers in Haiti were implicated in a sex ring that was going on by UN peacekeepers. They were hosting a sex ring in Haiti, and that's how we get all these stories where we throw out Haiti whenever we're talking about sex rings and stuff like that. It comes from this, like girls and boys that were like 12-year-olds and stuff like that were being taken to like UN, but with UN trucks and being like basically delivered to the commanders and stuff like that over there and just being exploited. And so this stuff happens, and it is the higher ups and stuff that are exploiting children and the elite or whatever you want to call it. It's happening, and we can't overlook that just because somebody is making a bunch of noise and people are arguing. So that's my final.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. And we're going to probably talk about these horrifying cases more in the anti-news that we're going to record right now, which is our bonus segment where we talk about all the headlines in the news and we get really uncomfortable and politically incorrect in there. So if you want that, you can go sign up for the Downers Club at patreon.com/thesystemisdown. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. You know where to find us, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that stuff. Just look up The System Is Down. Don't need to give a big long spiel here at the end. This is another official episode. This is the third one that we've done on this case. Like I said, it's going to be the last one for a little while until we hear enough information to make it enough uncovering that we think it warrants doing another official episode. But you can keep up to date in the System Is Down forum at tsidpod.com/forum and follow the case on your own. Do your own research. We can only do so much. But yeah, that is all for tonight. And Craig, thanks for being here.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't do this kind of episode for a while, but
that'd be great.
I highly doubt that.
Well, I'm looking forward to doing some anti-news because that's like lighthearted, fun, uncomfortable stuff instead of this down, uncomfortable stuff. But if you guys will have me, I'll be back here probably, most likely with your regular scheduled programming first. Not programming, that's their word. Your regular scheduled show first thing next Monday morning. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, question everything. Are you going to join me or just leave me hanging? All right, how about we do this? Since this is all new, I'll do the first half, and then we'll do the second half together.
All right, cool.
Question everything and stay. You suck at this.
What? Say that again. Give me the directions one more time.
I'll say the first half. You join me on the second half.
I did.
Kind of. Is there a delay here or what?
There must be because I joined you.
Question everything and stay uncomfortable. There's a delay. All right. Well, thanks guys for listening. Until next week, question everything and stay uncomfortable. I'll talk to you then. Peace.
This has been a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.